Hello, everyone. All right. So, as always, hello, and anything you want to say before we get started, please let me know. A very exciting class. We're going to really nerd out. I think we've nerded out every single time, but I think more than ever before, we're going to get into these functional medicine lab tests and really learn some details about the secret and the wonder of what science and the healthcare industry has discovered over the past decade or less. So a lot of this is so cutting edge. It either kind of sort of existed 10 years ago or didn't exist at all. So we are really on the forefront of health and especially women's health here for our discussion here. So again, we'll wait for everybody to join. Everybody's coming in now. So any comments, questions, anything you want to know or talk about quickly before we get started? Otherwise, we'll just wait for everyone else to come in. Hope you're having a great Wednesday evening. So I spent a lot of time figuring this out. So, that was my day today, is nerding out and a gazillion lab tests, trying to sort this all out for today's class. So very exciting, very exciting. Let's see here. I'm going to make sure everything works. Okay, good. Making sure we're going to be sharing a lot with you. I just want to make sure this works. And we're going to get ready, get the few people in our class, and we'll get started. Okay. Good. All right. So hello to everyone. Let me fix my hair here. I have a few pieces of hair sticking up this evening. I know what's going on there. All right, good. So we're going to jump right into it because we have a lot to cover. Most likely, I don't even know if there's going to be one class or two because we have so much we want to cover. And I've been talking about in all of the previous master classes of what it really takes to get you well. And when you're on social media and someone's doing a 30-second video and trying to tell you, it's really quick and easy, anyone can do it. And, here's the hack. And this is all you need is this one hack. And that should be it. Is true health couldn't be further from the truth, as we have talked about before. Using financial planning, that's a long-term investment. Using the example of rearing children, a long-term investment. Getting a higher education, going to college, getting a master's, a PhD, a doctorate in something. Again, we're talking more about the long game. So yes, are there health hacks and quickie things you can do to get an effect here and there at the body? You could, but that's not what we're going to be talking about. We're looking at true longevity. More than ever before, anti-aging is a real topic and conversation. People are seeing what's happening with their own parents and their grandparents, and they're like, I don't want that for myself. What can I do now to prevent that? So this is really the mindset of today's discussion and what we're going to be looking at and how to predict that, by the way. So there's a longevity gene we're going to be talking about. So it's going to be great information. So what we're going to do is get right into it here. And I'm going to share my screen a lot because we're going to be going back and forth and looking literally at lab tests together. And the first thing is why are they so important? So the first thing is that in functional medicine, you're doing lab tests, but you're doing much different lab tests than what the medical model is doing. The medical model does the same 30-ish test every single time, every single patient, every 6 months or once a year, and it's the same info over and over and over again. So all my patients are always like, I don't feel well, and why can't my doctor find it? And the answer is because they're not looking for it. They're only doing that same basic battery of tests over and over again. And if nothing shows there, then they can't or won't look further. And that's exactly how you end up going and working with an alternative medicine doctor or a functional medicine practitioner or holistic health, is finding someone else that might know or be willing to do something that you can't get from the traditional medical model. And that's exactly what we're going to get into in great detail here today. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to be taking a look at some very specific details here. So let me go find it. Let me make sure it's open. Where is it? And there it is. So good. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that you can see this. Hopefully you can see that. If somebody wants to chat and tell me, yes, can you see this biomarkers for women's health? Just so I know. So we're sharing a screen here. Yes. Hello. Anyone? So can you see this screen? Yes, but it's small. Yeah, totally fine. I'm going to make it bigger. Excellent. First thing is just make sure everyone can see it. So we'll zoom in just a second. Okay, good. So the first thing here is, let's just see here, view. Let me see if I can go make it bigger for you. See if that works. And then good. So let's see if that does the trick. Excellent. Okay, good. Looking better there. So what we're going to be talking about here are these biomarkers. Okay, good. And everyone can see the screen now and everybody can hear me? Okay, good. Excellent. You can't see? Okay, good. All right, so I'll unshare. Okay, good. I'll unshare it and then I'll share it one more time. So let's go see. Good. Okay, good. All right, so how about now? Everybody can see the biomarkers for women's health? Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, good. So let's talk about first and foremost the definition of a biomarker. And what you have here is the term biomarker, and it's a combination of two words, the word biological and marker. So what we're looking for is when we're looking at you at the cellular level, we're looking for these biological markers for what we're looking at here. And it's defined as any substance, structure, or process that can be measured in the body or in inner part and influence or predict the incidence of outcome or health or disease. But it's like, wow, that's a lot of words there. I get it. So we're going to be breaking down this definition. So what it means is literally anything that's on the inside, any substance or process that can be measured. So anything the body can do, we can measure it. And a big part, a little part, an inner part, a superficial part, this can all be measured. And the importance of that is because it's going to measure and or influence and or predict the incidence or outcome of health and or disease. So talking about whether you're closer to health or whether you're closer to disease. And that's what we're here to take a look at. And what's very important here is using this definition is we're going to take a look at you at the microscopic level. And it kind of ties back into everything I've been leading up to in this master class is remember, you have over 30 trillion cells. So we're going to be looking at biomarkers for these 30 trillion cells. We talked about having over 67 hormones and approximately 30 body parts, organs, and systems that are in there working together. And each one of these things have their own biomarkers. And this is the true way to know if you have a problem. So one of the biggest things I run into is a new patient comes in and I'm like, hi, so what brings you in today? And they're like, I'm having a problem with my hormones. And I'm like wondering, like, how do you know that? Because I can just feel it. And I'm like, well, how do you know it's your hormones? Because hormones, as well as other nutritional deficiencies and toxicities, make you feel like you have a hormonal issue. So several of these different dysfunctions will make you not sleep or give you hot flashes or make you moody. How do you know it's hormones? And they're like, I don't know. So I'm like, okay, so we're going to get into the details of that. And that's where these tests come into play. Is that, give me 1 second here. I'm going to show you them again and try, and I'm making them as big as I possibly can. So you might want to, turn your phone sideways or zoom in just so I can get these as big as possible. So let's see here. And this is the biggest I can get it. So let's go here. Good. So give me 1 second here. Okay, this is as big as I can get it without going off the page. So give me 1 minute here. Okay, good. So thanks for your patience. Okay, good. So then let's go. This is as big as I can get it. All right. So we have these biomarkers here. So an even broader definition, like we just talked about, takes into the account here, not just the incidence and the outcome of health or disease, but also, this is great, the effects of your treatments. So not only do you need to find out the information prior to doing anything, whether that's the traditional medical model or starting an exercise routine or doing fasting or starting a vitamin protocol, it can measure the outcome of these treatments and for interventions and even interestingly enough, unintended or possibly intended environmental exposure, such as chemical toxicity and nutrient deficiencies. And that's how we bring all of this biomarker scientific medical brilliance into the alternative medicine world. So example of biomarker, so you have a working definition, is this could be something as simple as your pulse or your blood pressure. That is a marker. It's a marker of how something is doing on the inside. It can also, as you know, you can get some basic answers from your basic blood work. But what we're looking at here is the more complex laboratory tests, including extensive blood work, including DNA, urine, saliva, and stool samples. So this is what we're looking at as far as, the importance. And then the most important thing here is this, it's the biomarker here is objectively measured. So I want you to just quickly go down to the red below. In a medical context, objective research refers to something that can be observed by a healthcare provider without patient input. So too much of what's going on in medicine in general is based on your symptom or what the patient says. And unfortunately, the patient doesn't have a medical degree or any training in anatomy, biochemistry, or physiology. So using the patient's symptoms is definitely good data, but too much of the current medical model, treatment, and protocols are based on symptoms, which are very unreliable person to person and patient to patient. So just take a look at how different a pain tolerance can be in a group of 100 patients. So if you can't get everybody to even agree how bad pain is, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like my 9 might be your 2 or vice versa. If we can't even agree on the magnitude or the severity of pain, how are we going to ever use the symptoms as a guide? So it's a very ineffective, inefficient way to take a look at things. So using these lab tests really allows you to be super accurate here. So again, a biomarker is objectively measured and evaluated as an indicator of normal biological processes. I mean normal, meaning normal functioning, pathogenic processes, which means there's a pathogen, a bug, a disease, a problem, and or a body's response to a therapeutic intervention. So you use the lab findings, these biomarkers, as proof of something is there, it's not there, it's good, it's bad, it's working, it's not working. Okay. So again, in red, in a medical context, this objective refers to something that can be observed. It's something observable. I can see it by the healthcare provider without patient input. So literally, I've gotten so good at these lab tests right now, and I don't do it, but maybe for one day I'll do it for fun, is that I don't even need to talk to you. So I could go and have all of your lab tests done, and then I can tell you your problems based on what I see, high, low, or normal. So I'm not going to do it, but it's just that's how accurate these tests are, that I can tell you exactly what you're experiencing, what you're going through based on what I see on my interpretation of the level. So that's amazing. So that really allows us to be super, super accurate. So let me go back and we're going to continue sharing here. So a true definition of biomarkers includes this, measurement reflecting what's going on without anything else needed. It has to do with the interaction between the biological system and a potential hazard. And these hazards could be chemical, physical, hormonal, nutritional, or biological. So no matter what the reason why the lab level is high or low, we have the answers here to what's creating and getting what for real, what are the root causes. And this measured quantity or level of the biomarker itself will indicate the situation that may be functional in nature and or physiological in nature at the organ level. It could be a problem at the biochemical cellular level, or it could be a problem down at the molecular level interaction at the microscopic level. So you can have this problem and you can predict and see and understand what's happening in the organs and systems, what's happening in each of your 30 trillion cells, and what's happening within each one of those microscopic level molecular interactions in those 30 trillion cells. So we are down at the very, very bottom. So this biomarker process refers to a category of medical objective indications of a medical state observed from outside the patient. So no need for the patient in a very positive way, which can be, again, measured accurately and reproducibly, which means if you redo the test, if there is some intervention you did, you can then see it again and again and again. You can see it getting better or worse or staying the same. So these medical objective indications stand in contrast to, like we had talked about, the patient's complaints and symptoms, and or, God forbid, your research from social media videos. It's like, I love that's where your diagnosis came from. And these are limited to those indications of health or illness perceived by patients themselves, and or what the person said on YouTube that you now think is your medical situation. So I love how it takes out anything that the patient might have run into either on themselves or some preconceived notion or quote research they did from a social media influencer. So all of that is just taken, just tossed out. We're only looking at what the body has to say, because you see here, the use of these biomarkers are key to determining the significance of the biomarker itself, meaning is it there, is it not? The interactions and relationships between not only this biomarker, but also how it relates and interacts with other different biomarkers, and the ability of these biomarker or biomarkers to create the desired clinical outcome or not the desired clinical outcome, as opposed to, again, using the patient's signs or symptoms alone. So that's a lot there. So what that means in simple terms is that the use of these biomarkers are key in determining what's happening, one, with an individual specific biomarker that you have a concern or a question about. One that you already know about is cholesterol. Is it high? Is it low? Or is it normal? The next question then becomes is how does this interrelate with my other cholesterol? So you have different kinds of cholesterol. You have the good and the bad, and you have the ratios. So it's not only just cholesterol, it's the relationship between the good and the bad cholesterol. And then it's amongst other things. And then it's also using these biomarkers as a guide to improve upon them, ideally, and doing that by natural means and expecting or guaranteeing a particular clinical outcome, which first and foremost would be you look and feel better. And then secondarily, we actually have an improvement in the function of your organs and systems. And then the final part would be redoing these functional medicine lab tests to prove that these biomarkers are now within normal limits. So these are all of the great pieces to that. So very exciting. And then the last part here is, though the patient's signs and symptoms have a long history of use in clinical practice, as old as medical practice itself, these biomarkers are the most objective, quantifiable, modern medical laboratory science, which allows us to measure all aspects of health and disease, again, accurately and reproducibly. So that is what I'm all about, is the accuracy, the reproducibility, and the results. So it all comes down to, not only does Dr. Lori say she can help you, is there any objectifiable proof of who you were before you started working with me and who you were after? And a lot of practitioners don't take it to this quote nth degree. And that's why I love these functional medicine lab tests, to really get all of this data at this magnitude. All right, good. So now let's go into the individual tests. So I'm going to share some tests with you. And the first one we're going to go take a look at is me. So let me go bring me up on the screen, and I'm going to show you, this is one of the tests I do and why I do it. And give me 2 seconds to get it zoomed in here. And hold on. Good. I have to log in. Okay. So good. So all of this is HIPAA protected. So just give me a second. All right. So good. Let me go get it, and then let me get zoomed in here so you can actually see this. So zoom. Excellent. So let's get this as big as we possibly can. All righty, good. So edit. Oh, I hope I can get it bigger. Hold on 1 second here. 2 seconds. Please hold for technical difficulties. So let me talk about what we're going to be looking at in just a second. So this is the DNA biomarker panel. And what we're going to be doing is everyone, I recommend everyone doing a biomarker DNA panel, so we know exactly what we're looking at and everything that's you. And let's see here. I'm so sorry. I cannot find the Zoom. Oh, no. Let's see here. More. Okay, good. So let me just share it. We'll see how bad it looks. You can text. Let's see here. Okay, good. So share. All right. So let's see. I don't know why I just don't have a Zoom. Oh, there it is. Yay, found it. Okay, phew. All right. So let me see how big I can get this. So this is me. So no secrets here. And this is one of the tests I do, and it takes a look at all of your DNA and who you are as a person. And the great thing about your DNA is it's always going to be who you are. So this test in a very positive way will never change. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this in individual categories. So the first category, and they're just in alphabetical order here, it says addictions. So what this has to do with is your tendency, whether you have willpower or not, to having addictive behavior towards drugs, alcohol, sugar, whatever the case may be. And the first gene here you see, and I'm going to teach you how to read the report by just looking, the DRD1 gene you see here is in red. So anything in white and yellow are your genes that are working good enough, and anything in red is where things aren't so perfect. So science has given each one of these genes a nickname, and that this whole nickname here stands for a long scientific word, and we're not going to get into what that is. So just kind of go with the bottom line for this DNA report. So DRD1 is the gene where I have here in red genetic glitch. And then you see next to it this RS265981. That is the barcode or the ID code of the DNA strand. They literally, science has given every single strand. There's hundreds of millions of them at this point of these DNA strands. And RS265981 is the one where I have a problem. And the reason this is a problem is you see the letter A, and your body makes DNA out of 4 different substances that begin with the letters A, C, G, and T. So I'm not going to tell you what they are. Just again, I don't want to give anybody any medical information or things they don't understand. So just go with it. So what happened here is my body used substance A to make this DRD1 gene. And the reason this is a problem is that we did not want my body to use the letter A substance. We would have preferred it to use some other substance. But my body had no choice. It had to use letter A. And the reason for that is you see AA. This is the double A there next to it. And that means mom gave me an A and dad gave me an A. So when I got copied, so to speak, there was nothing donated except for A. So unfortunately, I had to make A. Now it says plus plus here, which means bad, bad. And again, we don't cry about our findings. We don't blame mom and dad for our findings. When I do these reports with patients, it's about being causative and proactive over the data. So I need to know what I need to know about myself from an individual, and a willpower is that I know as a person, I will have a higher tendency towards addictions than possibly a cousin, a best friend, a spouse, etc. And then the last thing is why is this addiction factor even present in me? It's because of a broken, quote, dopamine receptor mechanism. Now, what dopamine is I call it the happy hormone. And with this dopamine, what you're looking at here is there's receptor sites in your brain. So when you have dopamine floating around, dopamine comes from protein, by the way. So you eat protein, your body breaks it down into dopamine as one of its amino acid counterparts, and then that floats on by in the brain, and it's supposed to attach to the receptor site. So with this particular gene in me, I have problems getting the dopamine to attach to the receptor site. And that's kind of unfortunate. But again, I don't cry or, oh, woe is me. It's like, great. So what do I need to do in order to keep my dopamine receptors happy and make my dopamine production as high as possible? And the first answer, as I said before, is eat adequate protein. Now, it's not even a matter of eating enough protein. It's also I need to make sure I have enough enzymes and digestive and gastric juices to break down the protein. And this is where becoming a patient and going through, it's not just any one factor. So if you have this gene, protein is important. But is one, do I need to eat more protein? Two, do I need to better digest my protein? Or three, do I need to better transport this protein to the brain? Or four, do I need to get the protein to better attach to these receptor sites? See? one gene, we already have 4 problems. So you can see how complex a body really is when you're trying to create optimal health and the perfect diet, lifestyle, and nutritional protocol. And this is just one gene. And wait, we have a whole bunch of them to go. Okay, good. So let's take a look at the report again. All right. And then you see I have a few other ones down here. The DRD3, the process repeats itself. And then I also have this GABRA2 gene that leads to addiction. So I definitely have not a bad, but a little bit higher than you would desire addictive personality. So that's fine. So I keep adequate protein. Now, there are some categories here that we're not going to cover because, again, yellow and white is good. So there are some other genes that create addictive behaviors, as you see, I don't have here, which is fantastic. Metabolism of alcohol is slightly compromised. I'm going to talk about this later because I know my own report. I have a few genes that do contribute to this. You, on your report here, a lot of you are dealing with chronic allergic situations, and you have what's called the DAO gene giving you a problem. And this chronic allergic situation will create a histamine response, and histamine is normally good. So when you're stung by a bee or you're in pollen, you're supposed to, quote, have a reaction. Your body's supposed to go achoo, or you're supposed to just eliminate it. But people who don't eliminate it correctly and end up in a chronic state, which can also break down the lining of your digestive tract. So what you see to the right there are the root cause problems are a chronic histamine reaction. The precursor to material to making histamine, which is methylhistamine, is collecting unnecessarily in your body. And or it could be that you eat gluten and or that you eat lactose, which is the milk sugar. So on this particular report, and I actually don't, but if I did have scores there, I should not be eating gluten. So I literally, if that was red on mine, which it's not, and this is the key to creating a personalized women's wellness program for each individual, is it depends on, am I going to tell you to stop eating gluten? It depends on if you have the gluten genes or not. So that's the problem with social media. It's like everybody needs to avoid gluten. Everybody needs to eat more protein. Everybody needs to do this. Everybody needs not to do this. It's not true. It has to come down is what is right for me based on the biomarkers of each of the individual functional medicine lab tests and what does my DNA profile look. And that's the only answers you can actually do or use or trust. This also explains why you've had such failures in trying to work on your own health or trying health hacks that you saw online or your best friend or the coworker told you about. Is like, why did it work for Jennifer, or why did it work for Haley, and how come it didn't work for me? Is because you were applying the incorrect health hack for your biomarker panel and or your genetic predisposition. So very, very important. So let's go back and take a look at a few more here. So we continue on here. That I have a slight immune system compromise. This one here had to do, it's the COVID gene, if you want to call it that. It put you at a higher predisposition of COVID specifically. So when COVID came out, everybody was worried about that. Not so much anymore, but I definitely was at higher risk in the blue of getting COVID than, say, other people without the gene. You can see here now, when you want to take a look, I have a higher risk for autoimmune diseases, and how I can induce my own autoimmune diseases by eating gluten. So my genetics are trying to tell me, Lori, if you eat gluten, there's a good chance you're going to get an autoimmune disease. So what we would actually request is you don't eat gluten. I'm like, okay, good to know. You have then B12 activation, which is one of the key B vitamins that helps with detox. So that's another huge one. I say the word detox and really people don't even know the definition that I'm using. So unfortunately, that word has become so manipulated. When I'm talking detox, I'm talking, again, all the systems, all the organs, all the cells detoxing out their own individual waste products, and also my ability to do detox. So everyone's like, oh, should I do a gallbladder flush? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's because your B12 deficiency. That's why you are toxic, is because you can't provide the B12 to start the detox cycle. So sometimes the problem with toxicity is that you have too many toxins. Sometimes it's not that you have too many, but you can't get out the ones you currently have. So that's a broken machine. And or maybe sometimes you're toxic because you can't provide the raw materials to help your body do detox. So anytime the vitamins and minerals are deficient, this is the equivalent of putting gas in the gas tank. So the main part, or the most important part of your car, is the engine. So everybody always wants to know or think or ask how the engine is doing. So a lot of patients are always concerned about their individual parts. How is my engine doing? You know, it's like, how is my brain doing? How's my heart doing? How are my ovaries doing? And sometimes it's not that there's a broken or damaged machine or part, it's that you're not providing the fuel source for that machine to do its job. So if your detox mechanism is not working, it may or may not due to a broken machine. It could be that you're not providing the B12, which is the gasoline for your body to do the detox in the first place. So what my body's trying to tell me is, Lori, you'll do detox, but you better keep your B12 reservoirs at peak performance or at 100% as best you possibly can, or you're going to go deficient and you're going to start building up with toxicities. I'm like, okay, good to know. So that's how you interpret the test and the specific information here. So we have a B12 deficiency here that is potential. And then I have a brain gene. I don't like this one at all. This one puts me at higher risk for Alzheimer's. So nobody wants to see this gene in their profile. But what I need to do is keep all of those poisons and toxins, all those scientific words over to the right. I need to make sure that I eat properly and I don't absorb or breathe in chemicals. I'm using fragrance-free detergents and I'm eating organic foods and I'm making sure my kidneys, my liver, and my intestines are properly detoxing. So these poisonous words to the right are not allowed to accumulate. Because once they accumulate, and this is many of the genes, what they do is they start acting kind of like sandpaper. So when these poisons on the sheet are starting to accumulate, they float around in their bloodstream. They can go wherever they go. And unfortunately, what they do is when they're passing on by your brain, your organs, et cetera, they scrape or scratch off the covering. So a big part of Alzheimer's is that the covering or coating to your brain and nervous system is being scratched off by the accumulation of these poisons. And who's really the root cause? It's not the brain. It's not even the poisons themselves. The root cause to a large degree of Alzheimer's is dysfunctional liver, kidney, and intestines not properly excreting these poisons and toxins in your bowel movements and in your urine. So again, root causes of root causes of root causes. So very, very important to functional medicine of really taking a look at what the truth is all about. Okay, good. So then we can go on here. I have some other brain chemistry genes. There's one particular brain chemistry gene here is the COMT. I see this all the time in women's health with female hormonal problems. Is everyone wants their problems to be estrogen and progesterone. And I think I've talked to you enough times now to know that that's only 2 of the 67 important hormones. So what it actually has to do with a true hormonal imbalance starts with proper brain chemistry, because the brain is the master and commander control center that communicates down into the body, to the ovaries, to the uterus, to the thyroid, to the adrenal glands, to the stomach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this particular gene helps you regulate adrenaline and noradrenaline, which comes from the adrenal glands, estrogens, which of course are your sex hormones. Cortisol is a stress hormone, again, from the adrenal glands. Dopamine, we talked about, is the key brain hormone, and the secret, and then this is why I've been talking so much, is insulin. So remember, I've talked about in other master classes is we talked so much about the carbohydrates. We talked about the seesaw, the teeter-totter, and why insulin is enemy number 1. Here is the gene from science that proves low carbohydrate is the way to go. Because if this insulin is allowed to get out of control, and I'll show you that again, it's allowed to it allows all of those other hormones to become unbalanced. So it's not Dr. Lori saying do a low carb diet. It's not Jimmy Joe online on social media influencer trying to sell his book on keto living or whatever the case may be. It is your DNA based on scientific research, based on medically substantiated biomarkers. They're saying is insulin creates hormonal imbalances. So that is what we're looking at. And that is why I am such, a stickler for getting and keeping you on a low carb diet. Again, like I had said in other master classes, I apologize that it's carbohydrates. That is the group that you have to eliminate. If it was protein that completely unbalanced your hormones, or if it was fat that completely unbalanced your hormones, or if it was broccoli that completely unbalanced your hormones, I'd be telling you to not eat those foods. It just happens to be insulin is created when you eat carbohydrates, and the insulin reaction, and let's go take a look at that again, is the thing you're trying to avoid at all costs. So this particular gene here is saying, hey, Lori, if you want good brain function and to reduce your risk for dementia and Alzheimer's, and if you want your stress hormones and you want your adrenal glands to cooperate, and you want your estrogens to work correctly, and you want normal menstrual cycles, and you want a beautiful menopause, and you want, not to have to go through what many women do around the age of 50 of the brain fog and the mood swings and think you're going crazy, and keep your dopamine balanced, that's your chill, happy hormone there with the dopamine, then what I need to tell you to do, this is your gene speaking to you now, Lori, is you need to avoid insulin at all costs. So do you think based on this red gene, I should be doing a low carb diet? Absolutely. And I've been doing it for 30 years now. So I'm like, done. I got this box checked. So it continues on here. And, there's some other genes. We're not going to talk about all of them, but there's some other brain chemistry genes here that can be a problem. Okay, good. Let me go down some of these in a very good way. They are all important. I mean, literally, when I review this with a patient, it takes me an hour. So you're really going to get like the abbreviated version here. But we can take a look at your cardiovascular risk and all of the genes and all of the poisons and toxins, as you see here, this nitric oxide, superoxide, ammonia, citrulline, peroxynitrite, your risk for infections, something called NF-kappa B and enos. These are all toxins that if they're allowed to accumulate, again, start acting like sandpaper and start scraping and scratching the inside of the cardiovascular system, scraping the inside of your heart, scraping the inside of your arteries, scraping the inside of your veins, which leads to stroke, heart disease, heart attacks, and all of that stuff. So we can go on and on. So you can go down. We can take a look at cardiovascular and brain. A big one here is energy. Everybody tells me they're tired. You're actually tired due to a biochemical toxicity and or deficiency. And look over here when we look at this cardiovascular and energy. What word do you see second there? Glucose. What do we know what glucose is? Sugar. And what do we already know about sugar? Avoid it. So if you want to have all the energy you need and you want to completely eliminate your risk for cardiovascular disease, you want to not eat sugar. And look at the last word there. You want to not secrete insulin. And then one other key thing, and this comes up so often, and we're going to talk about right here, as you see the next to last word there next to insulin, it says ethanol, right? So this one's a biggie. So let me tell you what ethanol is. Ethanol is the scientific word for alcohol. And I get into such arguments with my patients about giving up alcohol or prove to me that alcohol is bad. And I'm like, I'm not going to prove anything to you. It's like your genetics are telling you. Ethanol in the form of alcohol that we drink is not a food. It's a poison. Like, do you drink any other kind of alcohol, like rubbing alcohol, petroleum? You're going to be doing shots of that stuff you put in your car? No, this is all in the alcohol family. This particular one that we drink is just been kind of purified down to be the least toxic version of alcohol that won't kill you. But that doesn't mean I want to be doing it. So alcohol is a poison on its best day, and it never should be ingested. So I'm like, are you sitting down and doing shots of chlorine bleach on the weekend? And my patients are like, no, what are you, whacked? And I'm like, well, then why are you doing shots of ethanol? It's like, just do the chlorine bleach or just do ammonia or whatever other, pick your poison. Just go into your garage and pick whatever poison you want to do a shot of. And they look at me like, well, that's harmful or dangerous. I'm like, yeah, it is. I was like, what part of this conversation are you not getting? Alcohol is just a diluted form. So that if you literally took chlorine bleach and you diluted it far enough, you could drink it. You could do shots of it and it wouldn't kill you. So that's all you're doing is a diluted form of an extremely dangerous poison. So ethanol does not get metabolized in your body, or alcohol, ethanol science, alcohol, same thing. Alcohol does not get metabolized in your body as a food. It gets metabolized in your body as a toxin, because the next thing ethanol becomes, or alcohol, when it hits the stomach, hydrochloric acid, and then is shunted off for the liver to be further metabolized, it turns into a substance known as formaldehyde. So anybody familiar with what formaldehyde is? Well, it's the toxin that they use to embalm bodies when you are getting ready to see your loved ones off and you go to the funeral. So it's a poison. And if you actually look or you know anything about the toxin industry or Dow Industrial or any of those things, if you went into any one of those plants and you saw formaldehyde, and the other one is called aldehyde, so either formaldehyde or aldehyde in a big vat or a big container, there would be that big skull and crossbones and that danger toxic side because it's a toxin. So the more alcohol you drink, the more formaldehyde you accumulate. The more formaldehyde you accumulate, the more you are killing yourself in a toxic way. So that's what I had to say about alcohol. So hopefully that finally handles the whole, is like, isn't a little bit of alcohol okay? It's kind of like, isn't a little bit of chlorine bleach okay? Isn't a little bit of lead okay? I'm like, I don't know. My Dr. Lori's universe, no. Maybe in yours, yes, but definitely not in mine. So that's the whole alcohol thing. So we can continue on down. It looks here, we do the detox. So some of my genetic problems here in the form of detox come from ammonia, things of that nature. Let me show the screen here. Let's see here, so you can see what I'm looking at. So I have the CBS gene here. And then this one, if I'm exposed to toxic metals, I don't detox or metabolize metals as well as I could or should. I have trouble metabolizing cortisol. So that means when I get stressed out, I stay stressed. So high stress levels too long, too often with this genetic profile will lead to chronic stress, mood disorders and weight gain, because that's the other thing that cortisol does when it's being excreted in too large of quantities is you start gaining weight despite the fact that you're not eating or you're fasting. Sulfates and sulfites are poisons that come from red wine and preservatives. So I tell everyone, no red wine, because the alcohol will kill you, and then they're putting poisons in on top of the poison. So people drinking the red wine, so you're drinking poisoned, preserved poison. So that doesn't make any sense to me. So people tell me, I don't know why I have headaches or migraines, or I don't know why I have menstrual cycle disorders, or I don't know why I'm gaining weight for no reason. And I'm like, because you're drinking sulfite laden poison in the form of alcohol. So what do you think your body's going to do with that? I'm going to skip a few of the words that are too hard to explain for this webinar here. Chemicals and hydrocarbons. This is key. I tell everyone this one. These chemicals and hydrocarbons, one of the things we're big on here is going organic, going green, and going clean. And how you do those three things in order to not kill yourself any faster than you need to, or annoy your DNA more than you need to, is avoiding all non-organic foods to the best of your ability, and getting all of these chemicals and toxins out of your life. So we talked about this in a little bit of a masterclass. It's coming up as a whole masterclass of its own. Chemical-free body care, chemical-free laundry detergent, chemical-free candles and fragrances in your home. So we're going to be talking about all of the places that you are literally killing yourself as a woman with all of these chemicals and poisons and toxins you're breathing in and drinking in all the time. So if you are a 40-year-old and you're moody and you're having trouble losing weight and your energy is going down and you're losing your edge in life and you're not as productive as you want to be, but yet you're drinking the sulfite containing red wine, and you're spraying commercial perfumes on your throat, and you're burning your candle that came from Walmart and it's not good quality every night when you come home from work, and you're drinking water out of your, I won't mention the name, but blank water bottle that you bought in the grocery store. How many chemicals did you just give yourself? So on average, there's an actual study. The average woman, from the minute she gets up to the minute she goes to bed, puts approximately 50 to 60 chemicals in her body or on her body during her daily routine and her normal lifestyle and dietary habits. And then we wonder why we're so sick. And then we wonder why we have migraines and weight gain and nothing we're doing is working. And then we start getting into autoimmune diseases and cancers. This is way too many poisons and toxins coming into this beautiful organic machine, day to day, month to month, year to year. It's no wonder, unfortunately, after 20 years of accumulation based on some genetics that cannot detox out these toxins as well as it could or should, you get the diagnosis of cancer, or you get the diagnosis of some abnormal, non-optimum tissue or organ or symptom or problem. So you can't do this to your DNA. It cannot keep up with the poisons and toxins of modern day life. So we talk always about going organic, green, meaning just green living that you already know, avoiding chemicals as much as you can in just your life in general, and then clean living, meaning all of your hair care, skin care, body care, your household items, your dish detergent are all, quote, clean, meaning there's no toxins or poisons used into it. So the secret on that is, again, doing it on a gradient scale. So if you're like, oh my gosh, that's like half my life. We're like, I got it. So what we tell patients, and I'm telling you, is every time the container or the bottle of whatever you're using runs out, just don't buy it again and switch over to a better quality. So then that way you don't have to throw out half your house and spend or waste money you don't have or didn't have to begin with. And then it's easier on the budget that usually your products will run 1 or 2 a week or a month. So just every time the bottle runs out, switch over to something organic, green, and or clean. So whatever the item is, it's going to fall into one of those 3 categories. Okay, good. So let's go back. We're going to spend a few more minutes. So this is definitely going to be a several part masterclass. So there's so much I need to tell you about these biomarkers. We're only at letter D. This is alphabetical, so I'll speed it up a little bit. But I think you're getting the understanding of, if you want to be a healthy woman, if any woman in your life wants to be healthy, you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. You are going to need me or someone like me to go through and test all these biochemical markers and come up with the most personalized program you have ever discovered. Because this is how you're going to know if you need to avoid alcohol or gluten or insulin or dopamine or formaldehyde or whatever the case may be. So let's take a look here. This is a key one. I am not happy about this category here. So in keeping with the topic of everything we're doing is talking about women, I don't detox hormones well enough. This is terrible. So what I had talked about in a previous class, remember, it's not only are you making too much hormones, the next question, are you detoxing them out? So even if I make the proper amount of hormones on a day-to-day basis, I have difficulty just detoxing out the regular load. So I have to make sure I'm not doing anything in life to give my body more of a burden than it already has. So even on its best day, my body's going to have some trouble detoxing out the hormones. So what I want to do, again, as you see to the bar over on the right there, I want to keep my estrogens in balance. I want to avoid chemicals. I want to avoid hydrocarbons, which are basically gasoline, gas exhaust, petrol solvent. So I definitely don't want to go and work in a gas station. I definitely want to avoid hormone disruptors, which are plastics. So plastic in the woman's body looks similar enough to the estrogen molecule that it fools the body and starts disrupting your hormones. So if I was working in a gas station and I was drinking my chemical soda all day long, and I was microwaving my lunch in a plastic container, and then I was drinking a few water bottles out of the vending machine in the gas station that I'm working at, and then the final one there, glyphosates are pesticides. And then I was eating, the hot dog from the gas station. Could you imagine? I probably wouldn't be alive today if this is what I did. Because why? My genes are like, Lori, you can't do that many bad things to us. We will not survive it. So please stay away from chemicals. Please stay away from gas exhaust. Please stay away from plastics. And please stay away from glyphosates, which are, again, pesticides. So please eat organic. So you're starting to get a better appreciation and understanding of why you have the symptoms you do. And I think that one of the final comments I want to make here is, now it explains why a program to true wellness takes so long. That's the other thing I run into all the time with new patients. They're like, well, here are all my symptoms and problems, and I want you to go find out what's causing them and fix them. And I want that all done in the next 3 months. I was like, no. I was like, I would love to do that, but just take a look. We're only halfway through one biomarker report. We still have 4 more to go that we'll talk about in the next masterclass. Look at how many problems I already have that I have to solve at halfway through one report. How long do you think that's going to take? How long is it going to take you to get all these organic foods into your diet and get all the chemicals and fragrances and poisons out? That alone is going to take the next 3 months. How long is it if you really truly are to somewhat addicted to wine or alcohol and you use it as a crutch? We're not going to go into the evaluation of why you're doing that. But how long is it going to take to overcome the slight addiction to alcohol you might have? How long is it going to get me to get you to stop eating the carbohydrate so you stop secreting the insulin? That's a list of at least 5 to 10 problems right there. Do you think no matter how awesome of a person or woman you are, you're going to get all those 10 done fully and completely in the next 3 months? You're just not. You're just not. You have the same life that I do. You're busy. You work. You have commitments. You have children. You're involved in charity events. You have significant others. You have to handle all of these things while all of those other aspects of your life are still going on. So when I tell women that it's going to be a year of working with me, it's not because I don't know what I'm doing. It's not because I'm not good at my job or I can't tell you what to do better or faster than when I'm doing it. Is remember, in functional medicine, this is a relationship. You and I are tackling these burdens together. And some of them are going to be very, very hard. It's going to require you to change your mindset, your diet, your lifestyle, your relationships with others, possibly what you do for fun, possibly who you hang out with, and possibly what you do for fun and entertainment. All of those things are going to need to most likely, or to some degree, all be different than what you're currently doing. And who loves change? No one. So here I am, it just like rocking your world and destroying your paradigm, all loving, of course, and for a very good outcome. But all still, all the same, it comes down to are the changes that are going to need to occur. It's going to take you a year minimum, no matter how awesome you are. And again, that's not an invalidation. That's just a realistic expectation. It's what it's really going to take to detox out every organ and system and every single cell and every single molecular problem that we have in every single one of those 30 trillion cells. So now I think you have a great understanding and appreciation of what we're really looking at here. So we'll wrap up the DNA. I think you get the point. I don't think we need to do much more. It just repeats itself for every single category of who you are and what you have going on here. So again, we do detox. We'll find out why you don't have energy. We'll find out what's wrong with your muscles and your brain. We'll find out what's wrong with your nervous system. We'll find out if you're synthesizing estrogens correctly. We'll find out if you're accumulating free radicals, which are poisons and toxins. We'll find out why you have gut problems. We'll find out if your immune system is working. We'll find out if the reason your immune system isn't working is because of mineral deficiencies. We're going to go through, see if you have a toxicity to iron. I have a lousy liver on top of everything else. So if I don't have enough problems already, I didn't genetically get the best quality liver that I could. The one positive I do want to cover, hallelujah, is a longevity gene. So this is the only gene that works for you instead of against you in regards to how we interpret this report. Is with this particular FOXO3 gene, the more you have green in this particular category, I only have one, which is better than 0, but some people have up to 3 to 5. It tells me that I have the potential to have a long, beautiful life that's healthy with all of the anti-aging factors that my body will cooperate. So hallelujah for that. So this is a great gene. We could talk about this one for a whole masterclass. It talks about my mental health. It talks about something that's very popular, which is methylation, is how well can I detox and provide the raw materials, and how well are my folic acid and my B12 vitamins working. We can get into the blood sugar, your risk for diabetes, how much, poisons and toxins can, be part of it. Diabetes is not always caused by eating too much sugar. It actually can be caused by a poison known as glutamate, which the most common source of that is monosodium glutamate. That's the MSG that they use in place of salt in Thai, Chinese takeout, Asian food. They use it in low quality snack foods. It's cheaper than salt, so they use MSG instead. So you could be a glutamate induced diabetic. So you could have done intermittent fasting, and you could have done all kinds of wonderful things in keeping your carb down, and unfortunately still end up with diabetes because you've eaten too much MSG type foods over 20, 30 years. So that's really frustrating. We can look at your risk. This is a wonderful one. I always take a look at the obesity genes. So it looks at your current risk for obesity and how difficult weight loss is going to be for you when you're younger, when you're middle-aged, and when you're older. There's sleep genes that tell you any predispositions to sleep and if you have any trouble absorbing vitamin A. And then as part of this report, then once I go through everything like we've just done here for this masterclass, the whole second half of the report is now all of the problems you have listed out in alphabetical order. And we'll use the first one here as an example. The AANAT gene is one that I have. So that's the nickname I told you about. And then here's the long scientific word of what that gene stands for. Again, why I tell you, we don't try and give you any misunderstoods or confusions here in doing these master classes, that you're going to have to copy and paste them, put these, go online. But I give you a few paragraphs of what this gene does, some lab tests that I would recommend doing to flush out the other biomarkers that you can prove those other tests if there's a problem. Dietary and lifestyle changes you can make. The kinesiology challenge is you can do that with a lab test. We can test your serotonin levels, and or for those of you who are or are going to become in-office patients, we do the alternative medicine body analysis where I can muscle test you against the serotonin vial. And then nutrients that we might be taking a look at is possibly putting you on melatonin. I prefer not to do melatonin in supplement form. I prefer to just getting you to eat the foods natural in melatonin, because melatonin from outside the body is in synthetic, no matter how natural they're trying to tell you it is. So I really try and get anybody using melatonin as a crutch for brain or sleep. I try and get them off of it because it's a cheat. It's a hack. You're not really truly handling any root cause of anything. So I allow people to do it temporarily. But the goal is long-term is to get yourself on natural sources of melatonin. All right, great. So I know that was a lot. I mean, it's beautiful on that page as well. Anything you saw in blue is also a hyperlink to the internet. So I tell patients, if you really don't believe a word I said, or you don't like my report, or you disagree with the insulin or the alcohol or the sleep, I don't care what you disagree with, you can click on the blue link. It literally takes you to the government website where the science and the studies came from. And we're talking with one wonderful things about the DNA is this is a global discovery. It's not any country against any country. So every major company across the globe for the past 10 years has been working cooperatively in this effort to understand our DNA and interpret what the results and what it means. So again, this is science, this is medicine, this is laboratory biomarker proof wrapped around the most cutting edge latest discoveries. I love the DNA report. I love knowing who I am genetically, whether I like it or not. I love being totally cause and totally proactive over who I am, where my glitches are, and what I need to do and or not do to make the best outcome for myself day to day, week to week, and then looking forward with that longevity year. Who am I going to be 20, 30 years from now? So I love having that much data information and knowing exactly who I am and what I need to do to be the best version of me. So that was the DNA report. All right, great. So what we're going to do, because that was an hour, so thank you for hanging in there. That was a lot of information. I have 4 other key lab tests that I like to do. So that was the DNA. We'll take as many master classes as we need. That's kind of why I didn't commit to an actual structure. I didn't know. I'm more concerned about getting you the data than trying to shove it in and give you a number and topic for each master class. So today was all about DNA and understanding you. And we're going to be doing the very specific biomarker test now. Once you have the DNA report and all those words to the right we talked about, what if your insulin is high or low? That's going to be a biomarker that we do on a different lab test. We test your insulin, we test your formaldehyde, we test all of those sandpaper scratchers that I told you about. We check all of the levels of the individual hormones and poisons, and we see which ones are high or low or normal, so we know exactly where our next step is going to be. Is it detox? Or is it B vitamins to help the detox occur? Is it eliminating plastics from your life? Is it changing your body care products? Is it eating more protein? Whatever the case may be, you use the DNA test as the template that will give you a guide on where to look and where to head next. And then each one of the lab tests gives you the actual roadmap of what's there and what channels to go down, what exits to get off on the highway, which parts of the journey you can ignore, what's working fine, so you can focus your attention on those things that are key to you and your health. All right, great. Last thing is that was a lot of information. But if you have any particular questions about your health and or anything we covered, you can go ahead and put that in the chat right now, because this is great information, and this is how I am so certain that I can help you. It's not just a matter of me, knowing what I know. That's great for me as an individual, but clinical results from patients are the ultimate proof, based on the exact procedure and wellness programs we designed for you, that using these biomarkers, using these very specific lab tests, we can be 100% certain exactly of what it is, as well as 100% certain at exactly what it isn't. So if you have something you want to share or ask, we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions now, and then we'll be wrapping up the masterclass. Okay, good. So one of the questions is, it says, what is ghrelin? It's spelled Ghrelin. And ghrelin is a hormone that becomes out of balance when you eat carbohydrates and you don't metabolize them correctly. So this ghrelin accumulates in your system. So what it means is, first and foremost, is that you have a metabolic glitch, that you don't metabolize carbohydrates as well as you could or should. So you as an individual will always need to stay on a low carbohydrate diet, because not only is one of the risk factors for you is this increased glucose, it's also this increased ghrelin, which then accumulates in the small intestine. It destabilizes your blood sugar levels. It doesn't allow your sugar and your insulin to be absorbed or metabolized correctly. It's like a precursor to, hey, diabetes is coming your way. So it measures how well or not well you're digesting, metabolizing, and utilizing carbohydrates currently. So if you have a high score when you test ghrelin specifically on one of these functional medicine lab tests, it tells you right there you're already eating too many carbohydrates, more than your machine can digest. So great question. Okay, good. My thoughts on allergy specialists giving you small doses of a substance you're allergic to. Small doses of substance you're allergic to is homeopathy. So that's been around for over 100 years, started by the brilliant Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. So that's homeopathy, is you give in a very, very small homeopathic dose the exact poison that you're trying to treat or cure. The reason you do that is you're trying to just give a few molecules to the immune system to recognize that there's an issue. And then what you do is you're relying on the immune system to go fix the broken mechanism. So it is workable, but not always giving you the product or the results you're hoping you're expecting, because it is homeopathy. So it's a very simple solution, high value if it works. And then if it doesn't, you're looking at more aggressive things such as detox, dietary changes, and these functional medicine lab tests that we've been talking about. So great question. The tips on lowering the cortisol. All right. So yes. So one, if you have the genetic glitch that you don't detox it correctly, we want to make sure your detox channels are working. So first and foremost, what I would do is be checking you for liver, kidney, and or small intestine support, to make sure that if you do have a stressful day, your body has enough raw materials to detox it out. Things you can do in addition to that is, number one is blood sugar irregularities are a high cause of spiking cortisol levels. So a low carbohydrate diet, and two, when life does get stressful or work does get busy, not going to the vending machine and grabbing the soda or the candy bar. That's the worst thing you can do. So stressful day, bad day, long day, you always want to reach for your protein and your fats. So it's terrible, or it's sad that when life gets stressful is when we make the worst dietary choices, and it's actually the time you need to make the best. So more recently, and I do understand and have compassion, I've had a few patients lose someone close to them that just passed away, and they're in hospitals and they're flying to different states. And, I haven't seen them here as a patient of mine because they're handling these stressful times. And then they're eating hospital food, or they're going through drive-throughs. It's like, this is the worst possible diet you could be doing, because you already have way too much cortisol due to the stress of losing this loved one. You're just making a bad situation worse. So what you should be doing in between trips to the hospital hospital is stopping by, the steakhouse and getting a big salad and a steak, not grabbing a coffee and a candy bar or a donut out of the vending machine at the hospital. It's such the wrong thing to do. So stress, number one, is just trying to, good mindset, stress building skills, all of the things you can do. There's free tapes and videos and exercises and Pilates and yoga routines and everything you can do. So you're natural. Take a bath, take a walk, whatever your natural stress reducer is. The next one, again, is eliminating, reducing, and avoiding carbohydrates as a rule. And the third one is, we're going to do a whole masterclass on this, is doing the incorrect exercise. So these HIIT routines are the last thing you want to do for cortisol. High intensity exercise routines cause your body to excrete cortisol. So anyone who's not losing weight, who's on a low carb diet, is destroying themselves by then going to the gym, doing these, I won't name by name, but these commercial buildings, the one is a color, and the other one has a woman's name in it. The other one has another word in it. The companies I'm talking about. These are the wrong routines for anyone with a weight problem, a hormonal imbalance, high stress life. You should be doing what's called a LIT, a low intensity interval training routine, or a low intensity exercise routine. You should be doing stretching, planking, weights, anything that does not bring your heart rate above about 1 to 125. No running on the treadmill, no bicycling, no doing these 30 minutes like drop till you die, try to keep up with the instructor routines. Not for people with cortisol. So they are the key things to help keep your cortisol levels down. Next question here. How certain is the scientific community which says that you can improve your genes? The question is you can't change your genes. You have genetics, and then you have an entire subcategory, which we didn't even talk about. It's called epigenetics. Epi meaning around or surrounding or outside. So you have like the center, and then the epicenter is that space or area around something. So genetically, you cannot change your genes. You cannot ever make a bad detox gene good. It's just genetically who you are. What you can control and be cause over are your epigenetics of what we're talking about for this report. Is that if my genes say, Lori, don't eat broccoli, if I don't eat broccoli, that gene will be fine. But if I insist on eating broccoli to a gene that despises broccoli, I'm creating my own problem. That's why I'm saying it's not up for debate or argument whether you believe that you should not eat, breathe chemicals or drink wine or do a low carbohydrate diet or eat more protein. Anything we covered here on my report. This isn't up for negotiation. My gene is saying, if you bring that particular item into this machine, we are not going to do well with it. And then you have to take a gamble of the outcome to that. So if I am consistently living a very toxic lifestyle for 30 years, and then I get some form of cancer based on my genetics didn't cause it necessarily. I caused it by violating and abusing my genetic profile. So is it scientific? Absolutely. Can you change your genes? No. But can you change everything surrounding that you can manipulate the gene into working correctly because you're taking B12, because you're doing regular detox, because you're not drinking water out of plastic water bottles? Absolutely. You can have a gene that looks bad, but that's working totally normal based on your diet and lifestyle and just life choices. So great question. Okay, good. Last question here is then, where do parasites come into play? Well, not on your genetics. So your genetic is just telling me what you can or what you cannot do. So where it would play into your genetics is your immune system's ability to kill off viruses, bacteria, parasites. It doesn't matter, the fungus, whatever. It doesn't matter to the actual category. It has to do with how much you're abusing and or utilizing your genetic immune system to your environment. So a lot of times you're exposed to viruses, bacteria, parasites, etc., and you don't get an infection. They don't survive. Your immune system kills them and you excrete them, and you don't even know what occurred. Where it becomes a situation is when you have a compromised immune system. You're eating carbohydrates because, by the way, the only food source that bacteria, viruses, yeast, and parasites can live on are carbohydrates. They can't live on protein or fat. So if you have an infection, you have an infestation, I absolutely know, at least in part, you're eating way too many carbohydrates because it's the only thing that these guys can live on. So if they're there, there's too many carbs because they starve, they die, they literally pop open with protein and fat. So they take the protein molecule in because they eat, they're little, critters, and they have a face and a mouth. So they eat the protein molecule and they can't digest it and they die. So they literally pop open. Now they can use carbohydrates, but they'll pop open and die from fats and protein. So in part, you have to take a look if you're being chronically infested with parasites, where you might be picking them up, and 2, your immune system, and 3, your diet. Okay, good. Excellent. All right. Well, that's all the questions. Thank you so much for hanging out for our question and answer. This was amazing. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. And we're going to continue to nerd out, and we're going to get through as many of the specific lab tests. We're going to do the hormone test. We're going to do the toxicity test. We're going to take a look at all of your specific biochemical markers, all of your health risks, what's really getting you into trouble. We'll take a look at parasites because we're going to do the stool test. So we're going to take a look at how your gut microbiome plays into this as well. This is all coming on the future master classes. So thanks again, ladies, for being with me. I know it takes a lot to take time out of your schedule. This was so wonderful. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And again, make sure you sign up. We'll be doing this again in 2 weeks at 6 p.m. So good night, everyone. Love you. Bye.